By the way, I mean, I've listened to it. Jeroen Bours. Oh, hey, listen, we're live. Everybody pretend we're professional. Welcome, America, to the Eric and Rodney Show.
1 second, I gotta get a cup of coffee. It's right
Okay,
there.
go ahead. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll do the intro. You come back. Anyway, it's the Eric and Rodney Show. It's presented by Offensively Creative at Dinsmore Steel. I'm America's sweetheart, Eric Ryan. I own Offensively Creative. That's Rob, the PEO god. He owns Dinsmore Steel. This is Robin, who just came in 5 seconds ago. He's the thriller from Manila, and he lives in Manila. Crazy, right? Such an international show today. And my dear God, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you know this, but we have a legend on the show. Well, you know because you're watching. Is Jeroen Bours, the founder.
Robin. I thought it was Robin.
No, Robin's huge in the Philippines, but he hasn't cracked the United States market yet. So you're the founder and CEO of Darling Branding, Design, and Advertising. And my God, your resume is intimidating, sir. Thank you for being on the show.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
All right. So generally speaking, I don't know if you've seen the show. You may be one of the few in the country who hasn't. But in the beginning, we generally cover the news, try to make that a little funny. And then we talk about you for the second half hour. So here we are. Before we get started, though, once again, every day in the United States is some sort of national day, a reason to celebrate, get excited. And I got to tell you, it's been slim pickings lately. So these are bottom of the barrel national days. We're going through a cold spell of national days. But you were very accomplished. So I wanted to talk to you about this particular day because this is a point of contention with me. It's National Diary. Okay. And normally you think, oh, diaries, who? But all of these productivity bros on LinkedIn, they tell me the same things all the time. I have to journal. I have to wake up at 4 a.m. I have to take cold showers. I have to not drink alcohol. And I like doing the opposite of all these things. I don't like writing in a journal. I like taking warm showers. I like drinking and I like sleeping in. You are actually successful. You worked on MasterCard's priceless ads. You work with Steve Jobs. You're huge in your industry. So let me ask you this. Do I have to write in a journal? Do I have to wake up early? Do I have to take cold showers? Tell me, from someone who's had actual success.
No, man. Absolutely. Absolutely not. You got to go to a supermarket, you know what I'm saying, and watch people count their pennies before they walk away. Mm-hmm. Get a dose of life. Yes. And you got to go to a party you don't want to go to. Yeah. You know, and just look around and go, oh, man, I hate it here. But let me just observe. It's really about observation and letting it all come to you and just hear everybody talk, right? People that you don't need. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't do the Hollywood thing. And it's like, oh, you're really interesting to me because you may be getting me a step up. You know, you got to connect me to this person or that person. Those people, forget about it. They're just not into life. But I love to talk to taxi drivers. I love, New York taxi drivers. Forget it, man. Or any taxi driver.
They have the best stories.
Oh my God, amazing! Yeah. I had a taxi driver once, and he said, we were talking about these spikes, right? These tall buildings that started in New York. They're really ugly. They're narrow, and they're being built for oligarchs, right? And this guy goes like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna turn off my meter. Is that okay with you? And I'm just driving you around the block and tell you the story about this particular building."
Yeah,
it's the best. The best.
Right.
That's what. Because if you get drunk with a copyright, I'm an art director by birth. If you get drunk with a copywriter in a bar. And, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, you go home.
Yeah.
And you've come up with ideas.
Right.
Please throw them away because the next morning, these ideas are so fucking bad. But you were drunk out of your mind. So you thought these were the best ideas in the world. In fact, you thought you were on a roll.
Right.
Yeah.
No. So the point is, it's not weirdo abstinence from things that make no sense, right? It's living life. You got to go talk to people, do things, have experiences. Yeah. And listen, even if your drunk ideas are stupid, at least it was an idea that some other idea might come from. You've done something, right? I mean, it's an experience.
Yeah, I mean, to this point, I was listening to what do you call it, radio show this morning, and it was a young African American comedian who at 19 spoke to Jamie Foxx, and Jamie Foxx said, "You're really, really funny, but you have nothing to talk about because you're 19."
Right.
He says, go get some jobs, get fired, get hired, get your heart broken, fall in love, fall out of love, and then come back in 6 years, 7 years, whatever, and you have something to talk about.
Exactly.
That's life. So for
kind of sounds like where I am.
Yeah, for creatives, there's no difference there.
And that's why all this weirdo advice that's out there now, I think might be fine for people that are not creatives, but there's no space for, like, no one tells you what you should do as a creative. And I think your advice makes all the sense in the world. But it's bothersome when we all live on LinkedIn and these social platforms that are like, it's just the weirdo abstinence is bothersome.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like people always tell you what they've done. They don't tell you how they've done it. That's the difference, right? You always say they're supposed to know, like, I made $50 million yesterday and closed every client on the planet. And you're like, how did he do it?
Well, he didn't, I assume.
Right.
If I made $50 million in one day, I wouldn't tell you either.
But I wouldn't be posting on LinkedIn either. I would be gone. You would never see me again. It would be the Eric Where's Rodney show.
Live from Barbados.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's good to hear. So this is what I want to do in general. After we get through the news, I pulled up a bunch of quotes from like sort of modern marketing, like Ogilvy, Sutherland, Godin, and I want to get your reaction to those and sort of your marketing philosophy. If that's cool.
That sounds like a good bit.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good bit.
Did you hear the quote that I always say?
Shit, is it a quiz?
I'm going to tell you what it is. If marketing's working, the phone's ringing.
Oh, there you go. That's true. I like that.
I'm joking.
No, that's true though.
Yeah, well,
okay. Let's get through the news real quick because we have a lot to learn here today. Robin, I'm going to tell you, you've never had a lineup of stories that have made me feel dumber. So thank you. But let's get into it.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was rough news day. So it starts off very political. We're gonna have to talk about China, India, and Papa Joe. So recently, Chinese citizens are worried because high-ranking Chinese officials keep disappearing. So we have like famous spokespersons, defense ministers, even generals. So the Chinese public has urged that it's unusual for them to disappear from the public eye this long, because they're usually there. They're present for the propaganda. So BBC is saying that the disappearance are a sign of instability in President Xi's leadership, but I think they have it backwards. It just means that he's eliminating everyone that goes against him.
I'm sorry, but I think he looks like he has constant constipation. You know, I mean,
I think that's live from the. I think that's live from the throne, isn't it?
That's live from the bathroom.
Yeah, he's trying to do that Trump thing. See that, but he's just not successful at it. And
now these weirdo old men in charge are doing weirdo old men in charge things. So this is the guy, the latest guy who has been disappeared. This is General Li. I'm going to butcher this, but Shang Fu. I don't know, but he oversaw arms procurement, and evidently the Chinese army has been rampant with what do they call it? What's the term? Corruption. And they say that started when they liberalized the army in the 70s. It's always the libtards that ruin everything. Thanks, Obama. So what this Xi has been doing has been slowly eliminating his political rivals within the party. And I just wanted to say that it's one thing to do it clandestine behind closed doors, but we make our political guy, they disappear right in front of our faces. This is like street magic. They're gone.
Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. Robin, this is always a thing with you because you live right next door to China. Are you concerned about this?
No, we do have Papa Joe. So one thing that I am happy about, while Papa Joe might be incompetent, at least he's cool if we talk shit about him. This guy, not very cool.
So they said, so no one has Mao's numbers. So Mao, famously killed between 40 and 80 million people. But they've said since Mao, nobody has eliminated and made people disappear quite to the level Xi has. So
he's beat Vladimir Putin
in China. I don't know about Russia.
All right.
There's another guy right before this guy who got disappeared. Yeah. I mean, it's the guy right before this got disappeared because he had an affair. Now you're thinking rich people allowed to have affairs. No. He had an affair with an American and he knocked her up. So they go, listen, you can have all the affairs you want, but you cannot knock up the somebody from a geopolitical rival. There's a lot of weird shit going on in China.
It's a weird thing to care about.
I think you guys get it wrong. This is just the Chinese way of retiring. The Russian way of retiring is, being poisoned, which is bye everybody. I had a great life. Let me just drink this cup of coffee that was sent by fearless leader.
Right. Right off into the sunset. That's a very healthy way of looking at this, I think.
Yeah, we have a very positive way of looking at things.
I could tell.
I like it.
I got to tell you, though, so they're criticizing Xi for surrounding himself with yes men, but isn't that what you do when you get in power? Isn't that like, if I'm president, I don't want to argue with my underlings. You're underlings, so.
Yep.
I think it's called reading the room, Eric. Here's what I mean. If everyone that's disagreed has disappeared, I call it survival.
Maybe stop disagreeing.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. That sounds like a great idea.
Well, actually, dude, that's very human, right? That's if you're a bad manager, you hire somebody who's not smarter than you, and if you're a smart manager, you hire somebody who's smarter than you.
No,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it makes a lot of sense, I think. But once again, I'm smart enough to know how dumb I am about international politics. But this just seems concerning when you start to eliminate your naysayers.
That's true.
Then you invade the Ukraine. All right, listen, we got to get to Jeroen. So what's next?
This next story is a bit more complicated.
Oh boy,
so
it's complicated.
Yeah, so I'd start off by saying Canada, I believe, is probably one of the nicest places on earth. They seem very polite and welcoming. So it's a pretty bold statement to come from like India's prime minister. They're calling it a safe haven for harboring terrorists, extremists, and organized crime. So it's a very complicated situation because so there are the Sikh people who in India are discriminated against, and they want to have their new country called Khalistan. And then there's a spokesperson who lived in Canada who was for Khalistan, and then allegedly India sent hitmen to assassinate him.
Yeah, man, this shit is complicated. Once again, every story you do from CNN or BBC makes me feel like a moron. Every story you do from Fox News makes me feel like a genius. So you started off hot with the BBC and a CNN story.
Sure, we have some Fox News here. We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. So basically, Jeroen, I don't know if you have any insight on this. I know nothing about India. Everything I learned right before the show. Once they gained their independence from the British in 1947, they split up the landmass between three religious groups.
Yep.
Okay, so the Muslims went to Pakistan and everything seemed cool-ish. And then the Sikhs and the Hindus shared the rest of it, and they immediately started beefing. The Sikhs got their asses kicked. And they're, obviously very bitter about this. A lot of them, 770,000 have moved to Canada, and there's a separatist movement. Now, the separatist movement, they say, is just on the fringes. And what happened was this poor fella here was a separatist that moved to Canada, was assassinated, and Justin Trudeau said, I think India did it. Is that right? Did I nail that story?
That's kind of yeah. That's what's going back and forth, but and that's that's every leader has some kind of an issue with something that seems fairly small. I mean, and it's going to sound insane, of course, but eliminating one person when you have a country that has 1 billion people sounds very small, but this was very tactical. Yeah. The Sikhs, don't forget, these guys come out of British rule, and it was the Sikhs who were the best soldiers for the British Empire in Asia, basically. So take a moment to take that in, and you say, okay, now you're becoming independent. Now you turn to these guys who are no longer British, right, or British soldiers. That's why they moved to most families to Canada, and you go like, okay, you are the one who arrested my uncle. You are the one, you know what I'm saying? Right. So that didn't go over well. The British are very, very good in taking a ruler. I brought one with me for especially this story. So here's the ruler. And what they do is in London, they carve up the world, right? So if you look at the Middle East, if you look at Jordania, right? Jordan, right? Jordan. Okay. If you look at Jordan, look at the border lines of Jordan and Iraq and modern Iraq, that is, which used to be Babylonia. So you look at that and you go like, where are the natural borders? No. Some schmagegi in London used a ruler and just carved it up, just the way they carved up Israel, which they shouldn't have done. So this is the problem with 50 years, 60 years, even 80 years later. And you look at India now, but the one thing that is happening with India, and this is why he's speaking up about this issue, right? And he goes against Canada, is that India has become very quietly a huge power. It's kind of like they want to be number 2, and they're already number 4, right? And they're pushing Russia out. So India, on one hand, I love India. I've been there. I've been to India. We actually shot a couple of commercials there for MasterCard. Oh, wow. And, one commercial rather, but it felt like many commercials because it took forever. But the country is fabulous, man. I mean, moving an elephant from a scene takes a lot of money, man. We had a producer with a backpack, And there was always a person standing next to him, and I said, "What's in the backpack?" He says,
"Wow,
what do you think? What do you think?" So to get an elephant from the corner and move it to the other corner, takes a grab in the bag. You walk over to the guy and you give him some cash. Anyway, so India is just an amazing country. I don't want a bad word about India anymore on this show.
Okay.
That's right.
Listen, we were never badmouth India. As a matter of fact, Robin was born in India, so he has.
I was part Indian myself.
The only time I ever badmouth India is the morning after a big Indian meal. But other than that, never.
This is why I love having European guests on, because they're so fucking smart. Like, Americans are so dumb. I will say this anecdotally about Canada. Every time I've gone to Canada and drink in bars and they find out I'm American, they start talking about American history, like the War of 1812. And I was like, never heard of it. I know we fought the Nazis at one point. We're just so fucking stupid. So when I read a thing like this, I go, I should really study up on India, but I would never find another American to have a conversation about this with, because it always like, what about football? Did you watch the Patriots? And that's where we relate to each other, because we're morons. Like, you just dropped a whole history lesson out of nowhere on a story you had no idea we were covering. I mean,
I surprised myself. You got to go there. One day you got to go to India. It's just insane. It's
my brother, my sister, my father have all been. But man, Americans, this is why we need to spend all our money on guns. We're too stupid to have conversations. We just need to shoot. Oh my God.
I don't know if you guys have heard, but India by 2023 has already overtaken China by the most populated country in the world. I thought that would be a bigger news story, but it's not.
Well, because it's happening in the future and nobody pays attention to the future. It's like the world.
That's a sad story. That's a sad story, man. I mean, it's good for home goods and toilet paper companies are like, yes,
yes,
yeah, that's right. They're like, yes, jackpot.
All right, listen, we got 3 more stories to cover. Let's do the one more smart story before we get to the dumb stories.
Oh no, I hope we get back to the Fox stories.
No, don't what they're coming.
Was this Fox? I think this might have been Fox, right? Okay, so I wasn't aware of this, but apparently the U.S. border faces the problem of dealing with 4,000 migrants crossing the border at like a single day. So for those who arrive in America and get caught, they're not always sent back. So there's some hope. And I think the reason why this is such a big news story is because Biden's admin doesn't really want to just outright get rid of all these people. He wants to have planned ID cards so that they can get their info and track them. Obviously, most of the Republicans are in favor of granting them no entry in the first place. But I'm going to say, if you refuse entry, they're probably going to enter somewhere else. So at least with this, you can track them somehow.
Yeah, this is another one of those multifactorial problems that, if you read the comment section of Fox News, can be settled just by sending them back, right? That's all you got to do is fucking send them back. Yeah. Now, from what I've heard, we do have a shortage of, farmhands, people working in restaurants. These are typical jobs of people that come over. And these things need to be done, and also white people aren't going to do them. So I live in Massachusetts. I'm not on the border. I'm not directly affected by this. I'm sure those people have a story to tell too. But my issue here is that it's not as simple as just send them back. So ICE comes out and they say moving to a secure card will save the agency millions, free up resources, and ensure information is quickly accessible to DHS officials while reducing the agency's FOIA backlog, blah, blah, blah. ICE is in favor of this. These are people that are at the border every day. I am of the thought that you default to experts. It can't just be nothing's ever as simple as send them back. So if ICE is for this, Biden is for this, there has to be a reason. The people doing the job probably know what they're talking about. So
can I ask a question? I just have a question.
Yeah.
I'm not a design person by any stretch of imagination, but if I was going to pick one of these, I would go with the top right one. Who's designing these things? The bottom one you can't even see. The first one doesn't even have a picture, and the third one, come on, guys. Seriously, get Apple on this project. What's going on here?
I'm sure Jeroen, as a designer, has a lot to say about these.
Well, I just wanted to. I mean, I'm sure if I did, I know he's got something.
Right.
Yeah.
No, Rodney. I mean, I'm while Eric is blabbing away, I'm going like, wait a moment, we got 4 cards here. Can I pick? I'll take the one without my name and without my picture. Yeah.
Well, to that point, people are like, aren't they just going to throw them away? And yes, they're obviously just going to throw them away, but you got to start somewhere.
They need an Apple tag in their bag. Problem solved.
Right.
Do you want to teach us a little bit about the border and the immigration crisis? Because
holy fuck, you're throwing everything at me. Okay, so 2 things in my view. I mean, if I may. Yeah. As an immigrant, legal, I I don't understand how you fixed a leaky faucet at the very end where the drop comes out.
Right.
Why don't you go to the beginning of it where the little rubber, thingy is that you never can get to, and you have to pay a plumber nowadays $450 to come and fix that tiny little thing, which takes him half an hour.
Right.
So
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if you remember, but Vice President Harris went to Mexico right at the beginning when they got into office, and she came back, and it was almost not in the news. I mean, she was there, but it was almost not in the news. Or if it was, everybody has forgotten about it. And what she tried to do, which every administration tries to do, is basically go to the beginning of where the leaky faucet, where it all starts, which is the border of Mexico on the other side, right? These are not all Mexicans trying to get in, not at all. Everybody always thinks, oh yeah, millions of Mexicans are getting into this country. No, they're fine. In fact, the three last administrations have been doing fairly successfully is that Mexico is starting to become our mini China, our mini me, and they're starting to produce again, right? They're starting to manufacture again, which we actually should be doing ourselves, but at least it's next door. So if you keep the Mexicans busy, do you think they want to come here? No, they don't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So what I don't understand is that you have Mexico ruled by cartels and a government, right? And you have millions of people walking through Mexico. There they go. Hey, buenos dias, whatever, right? And there they go, right? And that's it. And where are they going? Well, they're going to the other side. They're going to the other side. And you just let them walk through. How's this possible? Because they're pretty miserable where they come from. So on one hand, they let me in. I'm an immigrant, right? Think about it. So do we let immigrants in? Of course we let immigrants in. This country was built on immigrants. Not everybody is Navajo. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I met Sioux in the last 40 years, but hey, that was pretty exciting, by the way. They didn't think so, but I thought so. I was in a meeting with a woman who sits down, does a presentation. We start talking about Colorado, and she says, "Yeah, I'm Navajo." I go like that, stupid me. Right. Wow. Yes.
He got all excited.
I'm the same thing though.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know what the solution is, but I'll tell you what: it's not at the border of Texas.
I think it's the upstream downstream thing. Like
the mailman is coming in here. Look.
Okay.
Very convenient.
Yeah.
Can I just make a statement? I don't know that too many solutions have ever come out of Texas.
No, they're not known for their solutions. We should have got the mailman's opinion on the immigration problem.
You were talking about inspiration before. Those people, you should actually talk to people like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Mailman, taxi drivers, anybody, garbage man. They see everything, they know everything. Trust me, the common sense coming from people like that, I'm jealous about.
Me too. I'll take this a step further. I think you should get drunk with him. I think the mailman shows up at 2 a.m. You get him in for a few drinks.
Come up with some ideas.
You say, dump that mail off. Let's party.
Okay.
But the upstream thing, downstream thing, we're always fixing downstream problems. By the time it's there, it's too late, and it's not the thing. You've got to go way back to the problem at the beginning. That's how you solve this shit. We never do, because once it hits, that's the sexy thing. That's why the globe is like, we knew about global warming 50 years ago. No one did anything about it, and now it's too late. So we're all going to die. Okay, we have 7 minutes before we get to the learning portion. Actually, you've taught us a lot today. So we've learned
a lot on this. Yeah.
Let's get to some Fox News stories, though. That's what really gets the blood boiling.
Yes. Okay. So first off, we live in a strange time where people have gotten rid of all the good stuff, and it's now all fentanyl and fentanyl-laced crap. So in New York, there's this. There are these scumbags that own a nursery. And apologize for my language, but you'll know why. So they also use this nursery to stash a volume of fentanyl big enough to kill 500,000 people. Great metric for measurement, by the way. Yeah. So anything
to avoid the metric system, like anything. So it's 500,000 people. Yep.
Yeah. So the one unfortunate victim who fell to the fentanyl was a 1-year-old who was napping on the trapdoor that had all these drugs.
Yeah. So I can't bring myself to pull up the picture now. After I had children, anything with kids makes me want to kill myself. So I can't bring up the picture of the child. I'm not going to bring up the picture of the woman who did this, but Jesus Christ. So she had this much fentanyl, enough to kill 500,000 people, under the floorboards of a nursery that she was running. Once she found the 1-year-old appeared ill, she called her husband multiple times to come home and hide the drugs before she called 911. So it is one of the worst stories I've ever heard. Drugs have won the drug war. We have to legalize this. So we have to do something.
There's not even a war anymore. It's just drugs.
No. And it's, what?
Yikes.
Very one-sided.
Oh, my God.
Can I just say something, though, right? Can I just say this?
Yes.
Wouldn't you secure the drugs better? Like I see, like they didn't even put them inside the Target bags there. They just, like, if I had that much fentanyl, and that's not my thing. I would think that you would put it in like you ever see those Pablo Escobar things? It's like beautifully wrapped and secure, and this looks like,
it's a rinky-dink organization. But just from a marketing perspective, we've talked about this before. Fentanyl kills your customer base. Why is it a thing?
Yeah,
I thought we left that to the tobacco people.
I'm sorry. From a pure marketing point of view, it also builds your marketing, a whole new audience, right? I mean,
that's true. But hear me out. So in 2010, 40,000 people OD'd and died on fentanyl. In 2020, 100,000 people died. Like, imagine if 100,000 people died of Skittles. I think you would stop buying Skittles. So it may entice some people, but they're losing a lot of addicts. And I don't think it's not a good business model.
Yeah. That's why New York State, right? You've heard of this. They have, in my view, far too little, but they have certified 300 people right now that can start up cannabis businesses, right? Yeah. And they support them, et cetera, et cetera. That's only 300. My cousin Mitchell in outside Portland, he has a organic cannabis growing, farm. And it's so organic and so precise and so whatever that people from Miami will call him and say, yeah, I'm the agent for an NBA player. I can't tell you whom, but he really loves your stuff. And how do we get it, et cetera, because they know it's clean. Right. And so now New York State, just a couple of posters here and there, as if that makes a difference, is saying to people, don't buy uncertified because you don't know how it's laced. So the lacing will become a problem, right? Because you buy. And in that particular, not that I'm a taker, I'm not a user.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I can't get high. I tried in high school in Holland. It was legal because they couldn't, stop it. High school, and it was like try, and I'm like far too rational. I'm like, I don't feel anything, right? Anyway, that's me. But so now they're talking about lacing, and lacing is a real problem. Bad shit. Right.
I agree, and it just seems like it's a weird go to market. I just want good stuff, I don't think
people don't, because we're coming from a black market and we're going into a legit market while the black market is now revving up.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. That's the real problem, because the black market goes like, wait a moment. And then people are used to saying, they go to parties, and then before they go to a party, they call up Rodney and they go, hey, Rodney, I got my guy. Yeah, I got my guy. Let me buy from my guy. No, I got my guy. My guy's better than your guy.
Right.
So that world is still prevalent. That's still out there. Plus, you look cool, right? Because you got it. You got it from your guy.
Right.
And that's the problem. That's a real problem.
Do you think the European-esque approach to the drug issue, like right behind me, that's Lisbon. No, that's Porto and Portugal. They've decriminalized everything. And if you get caught like 3 times in public when you're intoxicated, instead of arresting you, they assign you a nurse. Now, I know that in Portugal, they've come out lately and said it hasn't really worked, but it has to be working better than our system, which is a goddamn.
Yeah, it worked in Holland. As you know, Holland was famous for wooden shoes, tulips, windmills, and coffee shops. Right. And then the adventurer would say, don't forget the red light district.
That's right, baby.
Really? Okay. And then so coffee shops were prevalent in the 70s already. And in the 70s, the Dutch government saw, we're going to stop this. Of course, we're not going to stop this. These guys in their, houseboats in the canals, they're growing it. What are we going to do? Knock on every door? No. They're far too common sense there. So they went there. They did this, right? They said, okay, you want to get high? Fine. Go to a coffee shop, get high, fine with me. If you get hired or fired, don't come to us, right? This is your life.
Yeah.
They did the same thing with AIDS. Remember, Holland was like up, world news because they gave out needles. They
Right.
gave out clean needles. Can you imagine? It's like saying to somebody, "Hey, you want to kill yourself? Well, at least do it with a clean needle, right?" And that did work.
Yeah.
This is a different thing. There's a difference between getting high of a stogie versus getting high, totally cooked up from cocaine. Cocaine is still the Ferrari of drugs, right? And that's the problem. You're not gonna stop it. If you really want to stop cocaine, I would start at the Hamptons, versus New York.
That's where that's the good stuff.
That's where you gotta
Everyone
stop.
thinks Columbia.
Beverly Hills.
It's the Hamptons. Yeah, it is. You're right.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, well, that's an upstream thing. You stop it there, and then downstream, all of a sudden it goes away.
Right.
All right.
Well, they are saying that this fentanyl thing is 50 times more powerful than heroin. So I mean, it's got to feel something.
Oh my!
Well, you don't feel anything. You disappear. You're gone.
It's the new crap.
You never come back.
Yeah.
All right, let's because this next story from the Philippines, let's spend 1 minute on it because I do want to give your country some credit here. You're all upset about something. You want to tell us what it is?
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if any of you gentlemen listen to Doja Cat. Is probably my generation.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you who she is, but she's famous. Evidently.
Yeah.
Okay.
So her music, to be honest, wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty likable. I still liked her even after she shaved her head and her eyebrows and told her fans to stop listening to her music because she doesn't give a fuck about them. And then she started getting to the weird Satanist stuff. But I liked her until she named her new release Balut, which you guys might know is a famous Filipino delicacy.
Yeah.
So
There it
she's
is.
saying that the name of the song is because you're eating a bird alive. This doesn't look alive, does it?
No, so
dead.
she named it Balut because it's a play on Twitter. So the bird is being eaten alive, like the death of a toxic social media website. Anyway, it's a stupid analogy, but I love
It
how
is.
the entire country is upset. Like, whoa, boy, you have to admit, this is tough. This is tough. I'm an adventurous.
She should have named it Y
Yeah.
Yeah,
versus
Right, like-
X.
Yeah.
that would have been a better title.
I like that. I like everything. I don't think I could choke this down. Like, it's just look. I eat meat. Believe me, I fucking eat raw steak. This is woo boy. Robin, you
It's
like
rough.
this? Do you have one
I'll
of these?
deep fry it for you.
No, my girlfriend's mom was forcing me to have this the other weekend. I could not. As soon as I saw the chick, I was like hurling already.
Yeah.
But yep.
I don't want to shit on your culture, but this one's tough, man. You gotta.
It
What do you
is.
put salt on it? Hot sauce? How do you get this down?
Salt and vinegar does the trick.
Salt
It
and
tastes like a nice chicken stew, apparently.
You're on. You ever had a balut?
Dude, I'm kosher. I can't eat that stuff. What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? But it doesn't sound Filipino. It sounds very like a French story. Dude.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's like a very
it's
French.
This is something the Frenchies would do. Yeah.
Well, the whole country's upset because they say she insinuated that you eat the bird alive. I'm like, okay, no, but what? Why? That's like semantics. You're still eating a fertilizer.
I'm almost wondering,
That's true.
and I'm just brainstorming because I'm not an expert, if she did it for publicity for the album. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here.
right.
Most likely,
Because,
yeah.
I wonder if it was planned.
all right.
I-
Well,
I think the only
I'm
sentiment I
suspicious.
share with them is like a lot of people just feel weirded out when artists try to get inspiration from cultures they don't really understand. So I mean, I think that's the main reason why.
well,
Eric
listen,
and I were actually discussing earlier, just to tell you, I'll break it here first, that we're about doing an album, and he was going to name his Hot, and I was going to be Pocket. That's it.
There you go.
Hot Pockets.
that's our deal.
Uh,
All right, we're gonna move on now. Finally, we're gonna learn a little something. Man, oh man! So you're on. I
Yes.
briefly mentioned your very impressive resume, but I'm gonna swing through it one more time. And you said I left out a lot. But listen, I can only do so much research.
no. I just it's boring to me. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it ain't boring to us, so we're gonna have to sit through it. So here it is once again. MasterCard, where you famously were involved in the Priceless campaign. We'll get to that in a second. BP,
Ooh.
AT&T, IBM, BMW, Jaguar, AIG, Chubb, Liberty Mutual, Bayer, Absolute, Sheraton, Marriott. And that's just what you put on the internet.
So these are small businesses.
Right, little mom and pop organizations.
My God, there's like a resume.
Well,
Of,
when I started with them, they were really, really small. In the garage.
Jaguar
That's
was really
right.
small.
Man of the
Yeah.
people.
Jaguar
I
was-
helped. Harley. I mean, Harley was a great guy. Davison, not so much. But back in 1910, we had a lot of fun, man, in that garage. It was great. And they were like Davison and Harley, and I was like, no.
I don't like that at all. Flip it.
Yeah, we did some focus groups, with like big guys on tractors, and they all agreed it was Harley Davidson.
You have to do focus groups. And so we're gonna get into a lot here. This is I read this article. This is the story of the MasterCard priceless campaign.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember seeing this, but it was you and two other people. Once again, anecdotally, I watched a bunch of the priceless ones. Man, those commercials were good. They made you feel something. The baseball game, the woman that brings her mother back to Ireland or wherever the fuck it was, the 5 generations in one. I don't know how many of these you were involved with, but it was a great campaign. It ran for 10 years?
Oh no, it's still running, but
oh really?
They're not doing the commercials anymore and whatever. So priceless is kind of like going down because you don't know the meaning of it anymore, right? So you have to feed the beast. Once you have an idea, you can't walk away from it and say, oh well, the next generation will understand this idea as well. You got to keep feeding it, and that's what they haven't done, But it ran forever, and it ran over. I know in over 170 countries. I mean, it was just insane. Yeah.
Nobody doesn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Everyone knows it.
Everyone knows it.
It's been parodied a million times. It's like the got milk thing. And it really made a difference because MasterCard, they got close to Visa during this period, didn't they?
Well, yeah, they took over. I worked with Joyce. There are 3 people here being mentioned. There's really 2 people who came up with the idea. I won't mention the other guy, but it's really Joyce and I who on a Sunday morning broke the the ice on this. And the first commercial was basically based on a visit from where I took both my sons to a Mets game.
Mm-hmm.
We're Mets fans, underdogs, and it was a 10-inning game, so it took forever. It started very late. It was a Saturday night, and the following Sunday morning, Joyce and I didn't mind working on a Sunday morning because nobody was in the agency, everybody left you alone, and it was just a matter of like who's going to get the Starbucks cappuccino, and then we would start at 10 o'clock, and we would just sit there and it's completely quiet, and then just hit it. And this was the longest pitch in time, right? 8 months long. It was forever. The client was a South African by the name of Nick Utton. And he had a vision and he was like really cracking the whip on us. I still work with him till today. So this is 1997, I think. And so anyway, so Joyce and I were just riffing about, and I was complaining. I was just saying like how expensive it was. I bought this, I bought that, I bought this, I bought that. But then my son gave me a real conversation. He turns to me and he starts speaking differently, like a towards a grown up, right? That kind of conversation where you go like, oh, I wish my wife was here to hear this. And that's priceless. And that's where we went through over and over again and said, holy shit, if we buy stuff with MasterCard to lead to an unforgettable moment like this, like a priceless moment like this, then it's okay to use a credit card.
Right. And I'm not just kissing your ass. I have a 7-year-old son. I watched the commercial last night, and your story is verbatim in that whole thing because there's a moment where it says a real conversation with your 11-year-old, and he turns to the father. And it's like,
he was 11 when he said that?
Well, no, he was 12, but 12 didn't sound as good. It didn't have
11 sounds better, yeah.
12-year-old, versus 11. The rhythm is not better. Yeah.
I'm fascinated with these origin stories of like songs and movies and now commercials. Did you know that you nailed it? Were you like, holy shit, this is
no. What a great question. No, not at all. We knew we had, eventually Nick and his team, Nick Utton and his team, they came to McCann. They had champagne bottles made with MasterCard and McCann on it. And they pulled that from under the table, put it on the table, and at that point, obviously, we knew we won. And then you go, the next morning is like, oh, fuck, this is all over. 8 months are over. It paid off. He was a package guy who at that point was still pulling me out and saying, make magic, with a beautiful South African accent. And it's like, make magic meant for him, because he was a package guy, Procter & Gamble guy, right? The ending of the spot is really important. The logo. And if you go and have a conversation with an art director of the logo, it's like, oh, fuck, make the logo bigger, that kind of stuff. And so I started to say to somebody in the studio at McCann, fuck them all. We're gonna mess with the logo, right? And if you look at the MasterCard logo, those two round circles, you can do a lot of things with that. So there was once, so I started to put a golf ball in it. I started to shoot at it, with a soccer ball when it was a commercial about, World Cup soccer, and so on and so on. And the baseball thing, that became the baseball, right? And then we did a spot about retirement. That's the one we shot in India. And guess what I took? I took two wedding rings, right?
Yeah.
Right. And they come together, and then they become the logo. Man, Nick Upton went nuts. He loved it, and every rule was broken because usually you don't mess with a logo, with somebody's identity, right? Somebody's brand. But he let us do it, and I spoke to a famous director once. He directed the first two commercials. Tony Kaye. He did American History X, the movie.
Oh shit!
Yeah. And he comes.
Tony Kaye's famous.
Oh,
yeah. Amazing.
Great, brilliant mind. And he comes to me in LA. We're standing on the set, and he goes, "Oh, by the way, the endings are brilliant." I'm like, this is a guy, because he started as a graphic designer. He knew that what we did at the end was fantastic, because it really boing, gave you the last bang in your face, bang for the buck, and you remembered the brand. But what really happened is that an account executive ran to Joyce and myself once with a recording of a woman on a radio show. This was an African-American woman with a heavy accent, somewhere, Southern accent from the, who knows what state. And she had called into this radio show and said, "I'm going to get me a MasterCard because I love that commercial," and blah, blah, blah. And we were looking like, hey, why would a woman, call up to a radio show to say that she's changing her credit card?
It's
and how can a commercial have this much effect and this much impact on somebody? And I think it was, bottom line, it was the emotion.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is going to bring me to a sort of a rabbit hole, but it says in this article that another commercial tested better than this, but somebody was smart enough to go, no, this is going to work. And so I brought up a bunch of quotes from people who I admire the industry. Rory Sutherland, you worked at Ogilvy. I saw that he's a mutual connection. You must know who he is, right? Well, the first one of flowers, a weed with an advertising budget. I just think that's funny. But
that's funny.
The trouble with market research is that people don't think what they feel, they don't say what they think, and they don't do what they say. And that was classically borne out when Trump won the election in 2016, when no one said, "Oh, I would never vote for Trump." Everybody voted for Trump. Yeah. And it seems to me that there seems to be a thing with wanting to appeal to the public, but you know better. You were the marketer. You're the guy flying the plane. You have the brilliant ideas. So to ask people what they want, and this is why I hate buyer personas, is so ass backwards to me. You're the artist. Like the hot chick in high school doesn't pretend to like Dungeons and Dragons to get the fat ugly kids. Yeah. The jock doesn't pretend to like Taylor Swift to get the cheerleader. Like, we are drawn to the magic of the thing. You create the magic, and people should be drawn to you. And, to George Lois's point, another guy that I like, don't ask the public, tell the public. I loved buttons on my phone, but then Apple decided that I didn't, and they took them away, and I guess I love that now. And I just think marketing today is so ass backwards. We're trying to appeal to the average person who we create in our head. We're trying to solve for average, so all we do is average work.
You hit it on the head. I'm actually writing an article right now, and well, sounds big, but it's just for LinkedIn, just to make myself look important, I guess. But this particular article is anti-data. And so what you're saying is only getting worse, because what's happening now with data is that data tells you where the audience is. Data tells you this, data tells you that, right? It was Steve Jobs, I think, who said about the mouse. Do you remember what he said about the mouse? Is that people don't know that they don't want to cord to a mouse.
Right.
Unless you take it away, and then they say, "Oh my God, thank God the cord is gone."
Yes.
Right. So he knew, he thought very, very different. He thought that his thinking was common sense, had to be common sense, had to come out of life, had to come out of, real life, et cetera, and then people would want it, right? Yeah. The fact that if you look back at, and I think I have it here. What? Of course, I can't find it now, but I have in my office, I actually have the first or the second generation iPod, You remember that with the wheel?
Yeah, with the wheel.
No one in the whole, on planet Earth at least, had ever seen that wheel before and had ever worked with the wheel before.
Right.
And yet it sold like ice cream. Now, how is that possible? Because he knew, he had that vision, and he would put all the money on black and roll the wheel. Yeah. And that's what's lacking nowadays, right? So real research, you had a slide just now about research. Research, I call it Doritos research. Clients pay a bunch of guys sitting on a couch watching a daytime show because they don't have a job right now, lots of money, what is it, 25 or 50 bucks, just to say yay or nay, right? And while eating Doritos. So you have this really, really nice idea. It still needs a little bit of polishing or whatever. And now it's up to Jason somewhere, right, in the panhandle of Florida, who's watching some old daytime TV show, or worse, he's doing a video game, and he's going to tell you whether or not he likes it.
And you know what drives me even fucking crazier about this? Have you ever read Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman? It's a fantastic book. Yeah. Essentially, he explains that we think in two different ways. One is like calculated and thoughtful. One's instant reaction. When you watch something and you're intrigued by it, that's your first. Like, that's how you normally consume commercials. What we're doing researchers to do is to think about them and analyze them. Not how we consume that media. Yeah. Something excites you, you go, oh shit, I want that. You go get it. You don't sit back and I don't like that actress. Can we get somebody a little whiter? That's not how we approach the thing that we're selling. And that's not what works in advertising. So I think research is dumb in general.
Yeah. Well, listen, research used to be, for a while, right? For a decade or so, I would say it started somewhere in the 90s and ended somewhere in the early 2000s, where research became a litmus test. It was kind of like, who do we piss off?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to piss anybody off. So let's do non-piss off advertising. And that's very hard. And if you look at the advertising coming from Holland, from Germany, especially from England, of course, right? It's much more how do you say that? Homogeneous? How do you say that? The society, the society laughs, everybody laughs on the same joke, right? So you tell a joke in northern, Scotland, and you go all the way down to southern, Wales, where they speak very funny, and you tell the same joke, and if they understand you, they laugh about it because they have the same sense of humor, so you can get away with certain things. Here in this country, it started to become so PC at one point. It's like, oh my God, there's this one woman who called in and she doesn't like pink, right? Exactly. She doesn't like pink. What are we going to do? Change everything? So I don't know if Joyce would agree with me, Joyce King Thomas, who worked with me on Priceless then. But she and I were really jumping up and down and said, this is the idea. This is the idea. We now feel it in our bones. This was before the first commercial ran. And the research company at the time was so feared by every creative. And they, for the first time in the history of their existence, came to McCann and said, guys, we've never done this before. It doesn't test as well as it can, according to our standards, but we don't have standards for this commercial. They were so honest. They said, there's something about this commercial, and we feel that it has potential to really score high. So it didn't check every box, but it took somebody all the way on the other side, right, on the brainy, make money out of dumb testing side, right, to come to the agency and be honest about it. And that was amazing.
It's crazy too, because you want to go with market research because no one ever got fired for playing it logically and safe. Like if the commercial goes out and fails, you go, well, it tested well, it's not on me. You have to have balls and go, no, fuck the test audience. This is much better, and I'm going to die on this hill. They did it with the Cadbury, the drumming gorilla. That didn't test well. They went forward, and it was the best thing Cadbury had ever done. Yeah. And not enough people are doing this.
Yeah. I mean, shooting small, make-believe animals out of cannons, for GoDaddy did pretty well, didn't it? Oh, no. Was that GoDaddy or was that? I'm sorry.
I have to watch that one. That sounds interesting.
Was that Monster.com? Okay,
Monster. Yeah,
probably Monster.
Yeah, probably a Monster. But you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, okay, nobody asked for this. Just be silly about it.
Yeah.
Well, this is another one of George Lois's. So during an interview, somebody said it must have been so easy in the 60s and 70s to do creative shit because everybody would just go along with it. And he was like, no, I was fighting then. But I think our appetite for fighting clients, like, I own a marketing agency. I'm not fighting clients because I want to get paid.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the ideology now is that, whatever you say, it doesn't matter. Let's just fucking go. The artistry is gone. I think in the fringe artistry, the actual stuff that would move you.
Yeah, we just let's pull it back into 2023, right? So we just came back from Chicago, and we had a wonderful day with a client. We hadn't seen that client before we won the pitch, which was before COVID. What's wrong with our head? Totally.
That was great.
Anyway, so listen. So we come back. We go to Chicago. We see him again, finally, right after a couple of years, and we have this amazing talk. And all we're doing for them right now is social media. With social media, you have an excuse. There's a big excuse. We sat there with them and we created, this list of things that they need to do to be successful in social media. Mm-hmm. And the first thing had nothing to do with marketing or whatever. It had to do with their own way of speaking, their brand voice.
Right.
Because people go on social media and say, "Buy me." No, man, what are you doing here? This is social media. I'm talking to, my friend Rodney. What are you doing? Go away, go away, go away. It's like somebody, literally pulling me away from the show right now because they want to sell me, new shampoo or something.
Some encyclopedias.
Thank you. Not right. And so we said to them, if you don't do anything, if you don't want to change anything that we're doing right now, then please let us write differently for you. Let us write in a very spontaneous voice. Yeah. And that nowadays you can prove. You don't need a focus group for that. You just look at the numbers. You just look at the engagement on social media, and you know better, right? Yeah. So I'm 10 years ago, social media, I was a real snob. I was like Rory Sutherland and all the others. It's like, social media is not advertising. Go away, go away. But now I'm saying, forget about it. It's the new brand advertising.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so here's the other thing. Like, you worked at Ogilvy. I think Ogilvy is the Babe Ruth or the Tom Brady. Like, he's the godfather of this whole shit. And he has a million amazing quotes that make all the sense of the world.
Don Draper.
Yeah, he's Don Draper. Well, actually, he was Don Draper. But the idea that don't bunt, everyone fucking bunts. It's a whole game of bunting. No one's swinging for any ballparks. All we fucking do is bunt. Like, but if the Godfather's telling us this and we're not answering, and most people in advertising, I would bet, don't even know who David Ogilvy is at this point, the 22-year-olds. Yeah. Why are we listening to the giants in our industry?
Because you know what it is? Because there is a way for clients to cave in, right? Yeah. What is the cave-in point? So Joe Louis just the slide before said, we fought. Yeah. Nowadays, we our ammunition has been taken away. Think about it. So we still fight. We still fight. Yeah. Our ammunition has been taken away because the ammunition they have nowadays is like, no. Data says. And what that creates is, and this is on a philosophy, level, this is exactly what my article is going to be about, is that data causes the brand to knock on your door. Instead of you discovering the brand. There is nothing more fun, right, than to walk into a little town you haven't been before, to go into an alleyway and to discover this tiny little store that sells these really pretty, nifty XYZ that you have never seen before, and you're interested in now. Now, you're the discoverer. You walked in the door, you made that decision, you picked up this item, right? And you're going to make the decision to purchase or not to purchase, right? It wasn't a brand that rammed itself into your life and said, you have to buy this. Right. We're really cool. Check us out. Read more.
Click here.
Yeah. First name, last name, email address, and we can give you a little more information.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is another thing that I'm sort of obsessed with is, again, George Lewis is my guy, but the idea, like, I don't think you can test great advertising because if you can test it, it's been done. And if it's been done, then it's not great advertising, and this is totally antithetical to what we do today, which is look at the numbers, look at the data. Did they have success? Then repeat it, but you can't because at some point, the further away you get from the numbers, the less new it is. And then you need a little newness and nobody seems to realize that.
Yeah. Joe Isuzu. Do you remember that? Have you ever heard of that? Joe Isuzu? Okay, so there was a car. I don't know if it was national or local or regional, but it was a car campaign for Isuzu cars, right? Unpronounceable. So what did? They put Joe in front of it. So he was the car salesman, but he was exaggerating and lying.
Yeah.
So this is a car campaign, right? That this guy, hey, and then subtitles would say, well, Joe's not really right about this, and he's exaggerating, and it's not 12, but it's 1, and stuff like that. So people just liked it. They liked it, and they weren't talking about Isuzu anymore. They were talking about Joe Isuzu. You see what I'm saying? So that kind of risk taking, can you imagine today? No. That would be tested to death. Somebody would say, "Oh my God, he's lying." Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, but I don't like people who lie. Okay.
All right. Then you get rid of those people. You got to find your audience, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess this plays along with it too. So this is another Ogilvy quote. And so I got into digital marketing 12 years ago, and I thought it was going to be like Mad Men. And I know real marketers hate Mad Men, but I thought I'd show up, have a few drinks, sleep with my secretary, come up with a great idea. Somebody else would execute. I would win awards. What marketing is these days is spreadsheets, boring Zoom calls, nerds. There's so many nerds. I thought marketers were cool, but it's like, I don't want to disparage the SEO and the PPC experts of the world, but they're not like this. I thought they became tankerous egotists. I thought they'd have personalities. I thought there was some artistry in marketing. And I feel like the art is gone in totality. It's just numbers and geeks and spreadsheets and gated assets. And it's just very depressing.
Sounds like Wall Street.
Yeah, I follow a lot of my old colleagues. Ernie Shank, he's a great writer, and he has a column in communication arts. And there's still 7 people who are, paying for that magazine. But he's, I follow him, and it's wonderful. And then there's other people like that, and they put themselves on LinkedIn, and they write about the good old days. Yeah. The good old days weren't good necessarily. They're old, right? And they're days. So good old days to me means like, our budget was bigger. We got away with murder. I had a couple of campaigns where every commercial cost over $1 million. I mean, I'm ashamed to say that, right? That money didn't go to me, trust me. That money went to production companies, that went to the agencies, overcharging. I mean, writers used to say, Ernie Shank, actually, Ernie, if you're listening, which he isn't, but Ernie, Ernie scripts with like, open on a road in Tuscany. Hey, Ernie, we're talking about deodorant. What are you doing in Tuscany? What the hell are you doing in Tuscany? You know what I'm saying? But the guy wanted to go to Tuscany, and it wasn't uncommon to talk a client into saying, hey, I wish I did, by the way, with Marriott. It was a very unfair thing today, but I would say, we want to do an ad about, an international Marriott. Okay, I got it. Cowboy dress guy walking around in Cairo. Yes. And he fell for it. So we did it. Almost got arrested, followed by Secret Service for 3 days. It was hilarious.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, I want to do another 1,000 hours with you, but we're running out of time. So I do want to talk about, this is Darling. We didn't talk about what you're doing now. We kind of talked about the past, but I think we should have you on again if you'd like to do it, because you're in marketing.
I'd love to have you on every day.
Yeah, you're amazing. But
I have millions of questions.
Yeah, me too. I know. We need another 6 hours. But this is what you have today. This is your own agency.
Yeah, but it's frozen.
Well, I didn't. This is just a screenshot. I just did the Ola. Yeah, listen, I'm not doing. We're not that. The production value here is not $1 million. We got to
keep it real simple.
Right.
Do you want to plug what you're doing? Do you want to talk about your favorite campaigns? Like you go for the last 2 minutes. You talk to us.
Well, this is hard to do. I mean, the biggest kick that we get is out of the work, but actually, because we're helping startups as well, startups from all over the place, Holland, Israel, really bringing something. It's like bringing a baby into the world, right? So you name them, you brand them, and you're involved in their first marketing efforts. That's amazing. And then what's really amazing is also for a huge conglomerate that's like 150 years old to come to you and say, "Hey, we're terrific." So and then you can talk your way out of doing mediocre stuff, and you push a little bit harder. We did 2 Olympic campaigns for an impossible to explain product, an IT company. It's like the mini IBM, they call themselves, and we used the greatest athlete in the world, and with good reason. all of a sudden their brand recall went up by 27%. 3 months later, 28%. It just kept climbing, right? And we said, it works, and that is exciting, But we're not entering work in award shows. We haven't done it in 15 years. Wow. It's other people do it for us sometimes, but we don't believe in it anymore, because that's the kind of mentality that gets you into trouble, and it's corrupt. So we don't want to do it. But we're having fun, Listen, we put a 60-year-old copywriter together with a 29-year-old designer, and sparks fly. And it's a lot of respect and a lot of experience meet new experience, right? So I want to really plug young people, because young people, I'm teaching, I'm speaking sometimes and whatever. And I inexperience is almost not there anymore. They come out of high school, they go to college, they come out of college, they have new experience. I call it new experience. So you have experience and new experience. And, not listening to a 26-year-old really gets you into trouble.
I'm sure it does, especially now, like the generation gap is just so large, so you need to learn from them.
It's a digital gap too, because thinking totally digital, right? And which these guys can do, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. I mean, it's also frustrating sometimes, but it's also amazing. I mean, they should know, the capital of a certain country. That would be nice, but but other than that, it's fantastic.
One more thing before we go. It must be liberating when clients argue with you to be able to say, listen, fuckface, I came up with a priceless campaign, so shut up.
Never.
Stop it.
No, there's plenty of clients who don't even know that I am.
No, if I was Tom Brady and someone argued with me, I go, look at the rings, shut up. That's you.
I was say, see if you can catch this.
Yeah, but I'm not that handsome.
All right, man. We gotta. I think we've already been shut off on LinkedIn because there's a hard stop at the hour. But you have been fantastic. Can you stick around for 2 minutes? Can we log off? All right, great. Well, America will be back on Monday. It's gonna be fantastic. I can feel it. Have a lovely weekend. Goodbye.